Now let's look at how we can use Google Sheets to create a line graph for paired data. Here we have a table of data that represents the percentage of the U.S. population that is foreign-born over the last 50 years. And this is census data. So in 1950, 6.9% of the population in the U.S. was foreign-born. In 2020, 13.5% of the population was foreign-born. If we want to graph this with a line graph, we would highlight the data, go up to Insert, and then select Chart. And Google Sheets will think about what the data is and take a guess at what graph you want. Now, it may be right or wrong. In this case, it did give me a line graph. But if it's wrong, you can go over here to the chart editor and change or adjust what kind of graph you have. We do want a line chart, so that's good. But there are some key things that are missing that Google Sheets hasn't done. First off, we have lines connecting to the data, but we're not seeing where the actual data points are. We always, in a line chart, we want to see where those data points are, and we want to show them as points or as some symbol so we can see where the data actually is in this graph. It's not the entire graph, it's specific points on this graph. So we're going to want to change that part. We also want to adjust the titles. So we're going to customize. We can choose to adjust the chart titles instead of, right now I have it up on a horizontal axis title. I think year is pretty good for that, so I'll keep that there, but I will make it bold just to make it stand out more. I also have a chart title, which I definitely could be more specific. It just says percent versus year. Let's go ahead and actually be a lot more specific. Let's say this is the percent of the U.S. population over time that is foreign-born. Now, I didn't put a space there, so it's saying I have bad spelling, but there we go. We could center that title. We could bold it. We could change the color to make it to stand out a little bit more. And if I want the title to be all on one line, I could actually extend the graph to just make sure that it shows there more specifically. So we've got a nice title now that's very specific to the situation. We could be a little more specific on our vertical axis title. Right now it just says percent, but this is the percent of the U.S. population. So I could be more specific. And then the other thing we want here, I mentioned that's really missing, is that those dots for where the data is. You can find that by going to Series Options, and under Series Options we can choose the color we want the line to be. We can choose whether it's dashed or a solid line. We can then choose, it says point size here, and we can choose to be a circle, but that point size right now it says none. That's because we're not showing points where our data is. We could choose to show those points as a different size. I'm going to choose 7 point. And now we see the points. And that's really important on these types of graphs because now you're showing the person where the actual data collected was. The line is just showing you the trend. It's not part of the data itself. Now it does give you an option. You could have that as a triangle or a square or a star. So different people like to do different things. I think the circle is classic. So under the series options, you can find a way to put those points back in. Other things to be aware of are those grid lines. Right now, we have the grid lines on the vertical axis going from having spaced out with 5 units, but we could really make that more detailed. We could make the step be 2 instead. Whoops. I did that for the horizontal axis by accident. The horizontal axis is up here first. A horizontal axis being by 2s is really too tight. If you think about the data is every 10 years, so we would want this to be 10. All right, so that's the horizontal axis. What I was really trying to do with a step of 2 was the vertical axis, so I needed to change to the option of the vertical axis before I did a step of 2. So there we have a step of 2, which makes it a little bit easier to see where these dots are now that we've changed both the axes, the year to be 1950 to 2020, and the horizontal or vertical axis going from 0 to 14% and with a spacing of 2. Makes it a little bit easier to see where these are. So we've now got a really nice, easy to read line graph that I think conveys the information and makes it easy for someone to read.